Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ancient Warfare Answers with me, Murray, your weekly 10-minute fix of ancient warfare to take you away from whatever distractions there are from the really important stuff of ancient warfare in your everyday lives. Today's question is from the Scrubby, the SG Ruby. I read that as the rugby for a minute there, but I read that there's actually no rugby in there. I put the G in the wrong place. The Scrooby. Anyway, so let's continue the theme. How new imperial legions were raised. Regions were raised. Legions were raised. Did other legions provide cadres to train? Thanks, the Scrooby. This, of course, is a fascinating big picture that we have to go on a deep dive. So welcome to a deep dive. Now, of course, what I'm going to do here is answer this question or attempt to answer this question. And that's what I do, is attempt to answer your questions. You can send me questions, postcards, emails, comment on a previous video, stop me in the street, shout very loudly. Maybe I'll hear. You'll need to be in Sydney, Australia for that one to work. And of course, you can back us on Patreon. Many of our questions come from patrons, although not all. And you can back us at one of three levels: Optio, Legionary, Optio, and Centurion, $1, $5, and $10, and find out that way. And of course, there's a new podcast, which is the Ancient History podcast. You can listen to that. You can listen to the big Ancient Warfare podcast that comes out every month, where there's the panel of generally 5 or 6 of us talking about either the latest issue of the magazine or indeed an in-betweener, as we call it. The last one was on the Gladiator 2 trailer. That dates this video if you're looking at it in 10 years' time. Anyway, now, this question about the raising of new legions is fascinating. Most of the legions, and for most of the Roman Empire, late Republic, by the end of the Roman Republic, there's 50 legions, and that soon gets consolidated by Octavian/Augustus down to roughly 28. It eventually gets up to 30. There's bits where it's less, but it doesn't get more than 30. Most of those legions are founded or amalgamated and begin their history in the 50s BC under Julius Caesar through to the 30s BC under Antony and Octavian. So most legions are founded in 50s, 40s, and 30s BC. Several of them are lost, obviously. 17, 18, and 19 are lost at the Teutoburg Forest in AD 9. Others are disbanded or lost at various different times. Several are lost during the Batavian Revolt. A couple are lost under Domitian, and then a couple are lost in this early 2nd century. We've talked about the 9th and the 22nd. Now, the interesting thing with that, of course, is that when a legion is lost or disbanded, or for various other reasons, to get it up to 30 in 197, which is when it hits 30 and it never changes from that point. What you've got, of course, is a new legion being raised, and we have a lot of gaps in our knowledge, but I think we can extrapolate quite a few things out from what we do know. So, jumping backwards into this deep dive. We're at the mouth of the rabbit hole right now. Now, what you've got, of course, is the idea, according to The Roman Soldier by Watson, is that the training of Roman legionaries, generally speaking, a month, 8 weeks to train a Roman legionary in the basic drill, so what we would call basic training. And you've, of course, got lots of evidence in inscriptions mostly about the fact that various officers, so centurions, perhaps optios, much less actual individual legionaries, although it may have happened for them too, are transferred around between legions, even between provinces. And so they are obviously quite a permeable force. They can go where needed. That's important. Keep that in mind as we talk. Now, what you've got, of course, is at various points in time, under the Roman Empire, new legions are raised, generally to replace legions that have been lost. So it seems like that sort of 25, 28 number is kind of solid. And at various points in time, the Roman Empire makes do with less legions than 28. And then something will occur, either a new campaign or a revolt, which makes the emperor decide, oh, I better raise a new legion. And at those points in time, you get new legions raised. And so Did I just say regions raised? No, new legions raised. Right, excellent. So, for instance, under Caligula in AD 39, you get two new legions raised, and that is 15 primigenia and 22 primigenia. They are raised for his German war, which of course doesn't eventuate. And then the 15 primigenia is destroyed during the Batavian Revolt. Under Nero, you get one Italica raised, and then interestingly, one Macrina. No one ever talks about one Macrina. Mesa raises that, and for his mutiny against Nero, and then it's disbanded immediately. But that disbanding is important to understand because when a legion is disbanded, there's obviously a whole bunch of legionaries who are jobless, and you don't want to have jobless legionaries because they're generally going to become dissatisfied and revolt wherever they go. So keeping them occupied is important. Now, what you've got, we don't know, but there must have been rituals and processes to go through the blessing of a new symbol. Each one of these legions has an emblem, whether it be a goat or a bull or a goddess. And they would be blessed, then their Aquilia would be blessed and the other banners blessed and created by, an actor, by the emperor. And, there would be a swearing in ceremony. There would be the appointment of a whole new legatus and the tribunes, the Lata Claudius and the Angusta Claudius tribune for the new legion, some of which would have been an honoured title, which again, we've only got a little bit of evidence for. And then you would have probably the transfer of especially experienced centurions to found the new legion. And that cadre that you're asking about, that's probably what existed. That you may have had veterans of a disbanded legion, but obviously if your legion got disbanded, especially if it was dishonored, you probably wanted to keep that on a bit of the down low. So you would be an experienced legionary and you would know what you were doing, but you probably wouldn't tout that you'd just been in a legion that had been disbanded. That's probably not something you would bring up. It probably would be general knowledge, but you would probably just keep your head down and do the drill under the centurion to keep it real. Probably, if a disbanded legion had been treated in that way, you're not going to send centurions and men into the new legion because obviously they're going to take bad habits, especially if they were bad habits, with them. So you're probably going to find that centurions are either going to be retired out or sent to other legions under other supervision, especially if they are considered disloyal or cowardice or something like that. They're going to be sent elsewhere to relearn bravery and loyalty. And so you're probably going to find all of the centurions are new. And even if you've got legionaries from a particular disbanded legion, they're going to go under new centurion commanders to teach them how to be a proper legion, shall we say. So where were we up to? Macrina. One Adutrix is founded by Nero in AD 68, made of the men of the Misenum fleet. So the marine body from the fleet, the classis Misenum, is a body of men waiting to be used. So obviously it's a new campaign. There's revolts occurring against Nero by Galba and others, and he needs new legions. So he raises one Adutrix at that point in time. One of those legions that's raised and sticks around, of course, is 7 Gemina. That's raised by Galba in Spain in AD 68 to help him in his revolt. Now, in that case, they're not using disbanded men. They're recruiting men from the province to enlist, men generally 18 to 20 something or older, signing up for their 16 years service. So you then get 2 Adutrix under Vespasian in AD 70, and that's probably made up of men from the Ravenna fleet. Now that's an interesting one because what we know is, and I've talked about it in the magazine, the first legatus of that legion, I think, is Frontinus, Sextus Julius Frontinus, who's been praetor urbanus on January 1st that year. He steps aside so Domitian can become praetor urbanus. And I think that Frontinus is rewarded with that legion's legateship, in particular because it's an honor. It's an honor to him to be given that unit at that time. So he's the first foundation legatus of that unit. That's what I think is going on with that. And there's various different reasons for thinking that he's appointed to that. He then goes to Britain as legatus of that legion, and then he becomes governor of Britain in 73 after he's consul. More of that anon. And so that's an interesting one, but I think that honoured appointment of the first legatus to found a new legion is an important thing to keep in mind. 4 Flavia Felix is founded by Vespasian at the same time, and as is 16 Flavia Firma. That's formed perhaps from the disbanded 16 Gallica, same number 16, and that was disbanded during the Batavian Revolt at the same time as other legions are destroyed, obviously not to a man, so there would be men from a destroyed legion, less bad attitude attached to a destroyed legion, although they could have a bad, well, you were destroyed, you shouldn't have been destroyed. But the disbandment, especially out of cowardice or disloyalty, much more likely to be dispersed amongst different legions, which is why I say legionaries may have been spread around to replace casualties, especially. We then get Minervia, 1 Minervia in 82 by Domitian, which seems to be to replace one of the legions lost, another of the legions lost, maybe V5 Alaudae during the Batavian Revolt. Although again, there are at least 2 legions lost under Domitian, which could be 5 Alaudae, and it could be 21 Rapax. Is that right? Yes. Anyway, there's 2 legions lost under Domitian. We then get a new set of 2 new legions under Trajan, 2 Triana and 30 Ulpia Victrix, which are founded by Trajan, probably one before his first Dacian campaign and the other before his second Dacian campaign, possibly 2 before the first, we're not sure. Then that's pretty solid for a long period of time. And, the legions exist and they're replenishing recruits from the normal recruitment areas for those legions, whether it be Italy for Italica legions or the other legions from those regions. At some point, obviously, those rules are relaxed and recruits can come from, not from anywhere, but they can come from other places to go into those legions. You then get 2 and 3 Italica founded by Marcus Aurelius in 165 AD, probably to replace the 2 lost legions, the 9th and the 22nd. And as I've spoken about in the podcast on the loss of the 9th Legion, I think that those 2 legions are lost in 161 and that the replacement quite soon thereafter in 165 is part of that picture. So obviously there would be, we don't know that those legions were lost to a man. They may have had lots of veterans running around from those legions who were then absorbed into these new legions or spread elsewhere. And that's pretty solid. And those legions, with the ones that exist previously, stay pretty solidly until Septimius Severus in 197. And he then creates 2 new legions, 1 and 2 Parthica, which bring the total up to 30. And that's pretty solid. Although there's some complications which occur in the 3rd and 4th centuries into the manpower and legions and that, but I've talked too long already. And then 6 Hispana seems to be founded at some point in the 3rd century, after 212 is when we're told. So all of that, I think, tells us that new legions can be raised by disbanded or other manpower lots, whether it be fleets, marines, whether it be disbanded or disgraced or destroyed legionaries, or a new area, found a legion from them. You've got the idea that there must have been some kind of ritual and blessing and purification of the new legion and the new legion's symbols and aquila, and swearing of loyalty to the emperor. And then the transference, probably in advance of all of that, to give you your 59 or 60 new centurions and your new legatus and your new tribunes to set the legion up, bring in the new manpower, and begin the legion like you intend to go forward properly, with a properly disciplined and properly trained legion. And Watson, of course, argues that can happen really quickly, whether you want to take a legion that's only had 8 weeks basic training into combat. Maybe not, but then it may have been made up of men who knew what they were doing in advance anyway. So I hope that has answered your question. The Scrubby, the Scrooby, the SG Ruby, not sure. Anyway, join me again for another episode of Ancient Warfare Answers. Thanks.